mythic narrative and heroic archetypes. Star Trek, with its humanistic guiding principles and embrace of diversity and social justice. The Marvel and DC universes, populated by superhumans, often disguised by everyman alter egos liberating the populace, lord over the box office of cinema and adorn the living room walls of legions of followers. For the massive fan bases of these and other sci-fi brands, Comic-Con is a Western world commercial mecca, a sacred pilgrimage shared with countless like-minded true believers. This we know and accept without much inquiry. While literary critique uncovers the mythic bedrock of our most beloved works of fiction and narrative poetry, the savior characters of print, television, and film remain our most reliable protagonists, and as always, consciousness-expanding treasure maps to the idealistic pearls of our perfected selves. If our sacred texts have become dusty and yellowed by time and increasingly impenetrable to modern minds, we are still drawn en masse to Christ-like heroes and their stories of redemption and transcendence, like ancient moths to ever-flickering mythic flames. Still, we dance around the subject of religion in popular music like tongue-tied suitors, desperate to avoid embarrassment, clumsily pursuing it, and yet all too willing to retreat to the safety of the conventional wisdom, which maintains that rock and roll, and for that matter the whole of secular art and media, is simply a grotesquerie of our religious tendencies, a funhouse mirror rather than an actual object and catalyst of our evolving mythic experience. Rarer still is it that one steps back and views the phenomenon of the Beatles, or Dylan, or the Rolling Stones, etc., from a truly detached perspective, applying structural and symbolic analysis to their story and art as one would to the underlying meaning of a film, novel, poem, or, in our case here, the mythic narratives and characters that seem to consistently be found at the core of our spiritual pursuits. The Beatles are uniquely exalted figures in Western culture. Contrasting with other stars of enormous magnitude like Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, or Michael Jackson, the Beatles have never experienced or ever needed a comeback. Their renown has remained untarnished by time, their image as durable as stone. Unlike the case of politicians, sports figures, movie stars, and traditional celebrities, their fame and acceptance does not seem predicated on trends, whims, or terms, and is impervious to geography, language barrier, and generational bias. From the catalyzing moment when they appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, and continuing now for the past half-century, the Beatles have been among the most popular human beings, the most popular things on the planet Earth. Their images and music have become so ingrained in popular culture that we use their names as personality paradigms and their songs to break down social barriers and unite multitudes. Not even the dissolution of the band itself or the deaths of two of its members have weakened their impact. Their story has inspired millions upon millions. They've been obsessed over, emulated, evoked, and yes, worshipped. It is hard to imagine how anyone could honestly gauge or qualify the Beatles' unprecedented level of popularity, fan devotion, and cultural influence without referencing religion or using religious language. But why? If we step out of our media-saturated reality, take down the Abbey Road poster, turn off A Hard Day's Night, and pause the Beatles rock band, isn't it odd, or at least a serious cultural poser, that a handful of 20-something troubadours in the mid-part of the last century were, in effect, elevated to the status of gods during their own lifetimes, and that their apotheosis continued even as they stopped producing, aged, and died? This phenomenon, as John so shrewdly alluded, can really only compare to quasi-historical religious figures of the past, such as Moses, Buddha, and yes, Jesus. Of course, those characters were, and still are,